last year in the fall, I started getting this really bad side pain. That was really sharp, like right here. And at first I ignored it because it would only hurt when I like exercised or ran around or did something crazy. And I figured it was like a cramp or something. But then it started hurting when I did normal things like, you know, walk and stretch. And I still ignored it because I would hope it would go away. But a week later, I just couldn't ignore it anymore because it started hurting when I went to the bathroom. So I went to the health clinic on campus and they did some tests and concluded that I had appendicitis. And they told me I should go to the doctors right away or my appendix might explode. I got this guy who lived in a dorm with me that I like talked to him twice, but he was the only one I knew who had a car to drive me and some of my friends to the hospital. And he was really nice. He stayed with me for 8 hours. And we went to St. Peter's Hospital because it was the only place that would take patients without insurance. And I sat in the waiting area for 8 hours before they called me back. And they took a blood sample and a urine sample, and it was awful. And half an hour later, they informed me that I didn't have appendicitis, which was great, but I was just mad because I had to stay in the hospital for 8 hours. And they didn't know what was wrong with me. And they said they could probably find out, you know, what was wrong with me if they took an x-ray, but that would cost another $80. So I was like, screw it, I'll go home and it'll probably just go away. So I still never found out what was wrong with me. And a couple of weeks later, I got the medical bill and it was so high I almost had a meltdown. They charged me $184.60 for the emergency visit, which pretty much meant they charged me for walking through the door. And they charged me $1,059.75 for waiting in the emergency room for 8 hours. I didn't even know they could charge you for waiting. That's weird. And then, of course, on top of all that, they had the $35.95 for the actual, you know, blood and urine sample. So luckily, I got most of it waived because I qualified for that somehow. So the hospital or somebody else paid most of my fees. But I know there are a lot of people that aren't that lucky. Like, they charge me over $1,000 for a blood and urine sample. I can only imagine what they charge somebody with, you know, a genuine problem. But it doesn't stop there. My side pain did continue, but I managed to keep it under control with teas and pain medicine, like over-the-counter stuff. And a couple of months later, I was in class, and my side pain started up again, but it hurt really, really bad. Like, I've never felt such intense pain before. And so I asked my teacher if I could go. And I was walking across the soccer field when it hurt even more, to the point I thought I was gonna faint. So I ran to the HCC and I just grabbed some lady in the corner store and asked her to help me. And so she called an ambulance, and then they put me in the ambulance. And it was pretty crazy because I was like in some weird foggy daze because I was in so much pain. So I don't really remember what they were actually asking me, but I do remember at one point I somehow mustered up the strength to tell them to let me out of the ambulance because I couldn't afford it, and I know it can cost anywhere between like $300 and $1,000. So I just told them to drop me off somewhere, anywhere, just let me out so I wouldn't have to pay for it. And they're pretty nice about it. They drove me to the health center on campus because they said they'd let me out, but they didn't want to leave me out with without anyone to help me. And of course, the health clinic never found out what was wrong with me, and my side pain comes back every now and then, but it's never been that bad, so I just kind of ignore it.
I sold auto, life, health, business, inland marine, basically any kind of insurance. I wasn't even really able to afford like the top of the insurance that I was telling everybody to buy. The entire time I was with the first company, I didn't even have health insurance. It starts at the top. The corporations that are the insurance companies, they don't care at all about the people involved. They don't care about the agents who are, giving a lot of their life and their time to these companies.
I was riding my bike one day and I fell over and I fell on my hand. So I got back on, grabbed the handlebars and rode home. So only like 3 or 4 days later, the swelling had gone down and I realized that the whole hand was kind of flexing and moving in weird ways. And I realized it was broken. So I went into the clinic. I was between insurance because I was going to get insurance at the college. After 6 weeks, the cast comes off and I'm looking at my hand and I'm thinking, it doesn't look right. The doctor's x-rayed it again, and he said, no, it hasn't moved, and it looks, it's off a little bit. It's off a little bit. Turns out it's 20 degrees off. This is actually how it looked coming out of the cast, kind of, and I thought, hey, it's just got swelling. It'll be okay. And the doctor was he's like, oh, it's got a good hand. See, you'll be fine. The actual procedure for splinting it was $2,500. So it's about $3,000 for essentially several sets of x-rays and 15 minutes of this guy's time to basically pop my bone back into a socket with his hands manually and wrap it up. So the frustrating part is, I don't know if you can see it, but the tendons and the stuff that move, like the bone would normally go straight and go straight to a finger, and now it goes 20 degrees down. And it's got this knot of, healed up bone material, but the tendon kind of worms around there, and then this thing's twisted. And so every time I have to squeeze it like that, it pops, and the thing's down and off to the side, and it hurts. And I do this and it hurts, and it just always kind of hurts. To fix it, they're gonna have to go in, cut this all open, and they're gonna have to bone saw this thing, my finger in half again. And they're gonna have to drill this out, and they're gonna have to drill this out and put pin in that way, and then put it on like an erector set, and then stitch it all together, put it in a cast, and I'll be offline for another 2 months, so I'm not looking forward to that. We're actually going after them for malpractice just to get the thing fixed. And that's basically my story.
So it was like the Marine Corps. They'd break us down and rebuild us into like these robots that only think about the company and the company's interests. I really firmly disagreed with every single thing that they were telling me, and towards the end I just became apathetic, and I'm trying to sell people on these ideas that I don't even believe. It was too embarrassing to admit that I couldn't afford or qualify for the products. I think it's important to know the structure of things, because everybody involved in the insurance industry is a tool of the top few people. People need to start taking a bigger look and like exposing what a racket it is, basically. It's unfair to everybody involved except for the people at the top that are making all the money. The insureds get the worst of everything, I feel.
I've got problems. I have this chronic body pain. It has been bothering me for a long time. I have really bad joints. I've got a constant pain from my lower back to my upper neck. My legs I can hardly feel ever, if at all. And my arms always feel like there's a filter, like I can touch my arm, but it feels like it's far away. I can't even get out of bed some days. I'll just be motionless. I've woken up crying from back pain. I started having these attacks. I would collapse to the ground in pain. I wouldn't be able to breathe. I'd be hyperventilating. It felt like my veins were on fire. I tried getting help for so long. I've been to over 10 just general practitioners. 4 of them told me my back was broken. I lost count how many of them told me that they don't have a pain ray, and so they can't tell me what's wrong with me. One of them told me that the only thing he could do for me is put a screw in my back. If it didn't mess me up even more, then I would still feel it on my back and it wouldn't actually do anything to help me. He told me that this pain could be caused by fibromyalgia or multiple sclerosis. Either way, he didn't know when to get out of his office because I was wasting his time. After 3 years of trying to counter this pain, trying to stop the attacks and everything, the chiro finally referred me to a neurologist who was the only doctor I've seen other than the chiro and acupuncture who actually treated me like a person. I had what he called severe chronic hyperventilation syndrome and respiratory alkalemia. When this is happening 3 to 8 times a week and nobody's telling you what's wrong, it's hard to have faith or trust in anything. I stopped doing pretty much everything I enjoyed doing. So I stopped talking to people, I stopped going out and doing things. I pretty much Went to class and then went straight home. I don't know what was happening. I still want to know why nobody could help me. For 3 years, I wasted so much time and money trying to find out what the hell was happening.
I had to deny quite a few people that were somebody who definitely needed a long-term care policy. Was like 1.5 pounds over the limit, so they sent her a rejection and told her to reapply in 3 years. I mean, that was my job basically, as a bill collector and a bearer of bad news. I had to deny, well, I'd say probably around 100 people that should have qualified, I felt, but due to the underwriting guidelines, they weren't able to get any insurance.
I'm pretty sure my healthiest days were the first 3 days that I was alive. About the time my own immune system kicked in, I started getting really, really sick. I've been dealing with chronic health issues, with chronic pain since I was about 8, so for 22 years. When we're talking about the healthcare insurance industry, most people are concerned about their dollars and cents. Most of us who have these chronic conditions can't afford the premium minimum. When one is chronically ill, when one is chronically sick, it's really hard to maintain that job that gives you that GDP, that makes you productive in this society. We who cannot perform at a level of production are considered less valuable. I don't think I'm less valuable, but I also know I can't afford most of the time when I start getting sick to go to a doctor. 2 years ago, I was very, very chronically sick, 25 various infections in my body. My immune system was shot. I had had what appeared to be discoid, the symptoms of discoid lupus. I was growing scales on parts of my body. I had hair loss. I was having a hard time maintaining food. And going to the ER, they look at you like, oh, you're just looking for a fix. You're a pain junkie, you just want that shot. And what I wanted was answers. And for 28 years of my life, nobody could tell me why I was so sick, why these things were happening, why I kept hearing from doctors, you're too young for this injury, you're too young for this arthritis to be showing up, you're too young. Very nice doctor and said, I think you have lupus and you need to go get it checked out. But without insurance, it's really hard to manage chronic cases. If it wasn't for having my naturopath who has been willing to work so wonderfully with me for the last 2 years, I'm not even sure if I would still be here. Stubbornness. I'm too stubborn to go anywhere. I deserve to be here. We all deserve to be here. We all deserve quality of life. And when people are compassionate enough to help co-create healing, I'm not looking to the health insurance industry anymore for answers. I'm looking to myself to figure out how to manage my care and manage my wellness, but it'd be nice to know that I'd have access to people who could help create that with me. We need to do something. I don't want to be in that 245,000 people that they expect in the next decade to die. I don't.